Hey TCSTV viewers, it's Dave and Evelyn from the camera store, and we are coming to you live tonight because we have a very special presentation. Well, a talk. We're doing a tech talk on the Panasonic S5 II, and we're also going to be touching on a few details about the other announced camera, the Panasonic S5 IIX. And so we're going to answer a lot of questions that you have, and we have some special guests that we'll introduce here shortly.
Yeah, now there is a bunch of work happening behind the scenes to make this whole production seem seamless. And tonight we have our TCS TV Dream Team. We have Drew and Gary who are behind the scenes. And
hi Gary, wave to the camera.
They're looking after all the technical side of things, so it's going to be a great event that way.
Yeah, and part of what we love most about doing all these live stream events is being able to interact with all of you. So this is your chance to ask the questions that you have. If you've seen, there's been a lot of great content out there about the new camera launch, and we of course want to give you the opportunity to ask questions. We've had some experience with it, but then we also have a very special guest with us tonight, actually a couple of them. We have Trisha from Panasonic Canada, and she is an amazing technical resource for us, and so we've brought her on tonight.
We love Trish.
To help answer questions. We do love
We've known
Trish.
Trish for a long time.
Hi, Trisha.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome. The other guest
so
we
much for
have
having
is, who you just saw, is from our TCS TV Live Dream Team. It is Drew Crawford, and he is our videographer for TCS TV. And so he was the one who actually took the camera on the ski hill for us to test out some of the in-body image stabilization. Drew, wave to the audience. There he is. That one's Drew. So he's here too to help answer some questions, and we'll just talk about our experience. But yeah, welcome everyone in the chat. If for some reason you're not logged into YouTube and you still have some questions, you can also email me. It's evelyn@thecamerastar.com, and I'll check both of those spots for you. But it looks like we have some great folks in the chat already.
Who's that Jordan Drake
Diana
guy?
Seifton, yes, Jordan Drake. So yeah, welcome everyone. And like I said, make sure you chat, ask those questions, and we'll get to as many as we can. So first of all, Trisha, we have two cameras that we're going to be talking about. I wish I could say that we had it here with us, but we had to hand it back. But the Panasonic Lumix S5 II. Can you talk about the highlights of, or what you think are most exciting about this launch?
So yeah, the big news for all of our dedicated Lumix fans throughout the year is, oh my God, phase detect autofocus. We launched a teaser campaign on December 29th that said Lumix, new year, new phase. And the forums and the chat rooms went mad because they all knew what we were talking about. They got it. They know. They've been asking for it for years. And yes, we finally delivered. So this is for all those very patient customers that have been asking us, why can't you do phase? We finally did it. So that's the biggest exciting news that we have. But that's not all. There's so many additional upgrade features packed into these both cameras that it's exciting on many levels. And especially for the price point, I think it's a great value camera because like I said, there is so many exciting new upgrades from the S5.
Yeah, and we're hearing a lot of feedback about that, just talking about how it is such great value. In Canada, assuming most of our viewers tonight are from Canada, the kit comes in at $30.99, and then the body comes in at $26.99 for a full frame camera that has a lot of great features, and a lot of them are tuned for this like hybrid content creator. And so that's how we tested the camera, is being able to use it for both photo, being able to shoot some action stuff with it as well, but then also using it as like an awesome video tool with all those great Panasonic video assist tools that we love so much.
Exactly. And when our product planning team was conceiving this model, they really looked at the market and the kind of content that creators needed to, do their jobs. And they felt that there was a lot of barriers and obstacles in the way to them getting the content that they really needed. And something like their shooting environment was a big thing that they took into consideration. So, we'll talk about that a little bit more, especially about thermal management. But the other things were, budget. That's why we tried to make this camera as affordable as possible for people who are on a smaller budget, maybe. Things like the improved IBIS in it. So you don't have to buy a gimbal if you don't don't have the budget for it, because now, we've got you covered with our new active IS for shooting while you're walking, to get that stable video. So yeah, there's so many great new features in it. It's really exciting.
Yeah, you just need a Drew on skis, and then you have yourself
Yeah.
a built-in gimbal. And actually, if just a shameless plug, if you want to check out our review, if you haven't already, Drew took one for the team, and he went up onto the mountain with his skis and holding a camera in a little bit of a rig.
It's rather
A
precarious,
little
right?
makeshift, but we made it work, and it was amazing.
He
seeing
spent most
the
of his
image
time on the skis.
stabilization.
You know?
Like how smooth that footage was pretty incredible. So definitely be sure to check that out. But I have a question actually about why the S5. Why has the face detection autofocus launched, to your knowledge, in the S5 model? Why not put it in like the GH line, or maybe even like the S1H, kind of the more like video specific tool? Why go like this hybrid, like entry point to the full frame lineup?
Well, S5 has been probably, I'd say, the most mass market of our full frame cameras so far, and had the widest appeal to the most people. I think the size had something to do with it, because our other S series are larger bodies, and that's great for certain people, but the smaller S5 body had that more mass market appeal. So that's why we decided to put the first iteration of our phase detect in this camera, so that it would appeal to the widest variety of people, hopefully new customers who are coming into Lumix, or people who decide they want to step up from Micro Four Thirds as well. The body size of that camera is not that much different from a GH6, maybe a little bit heavier, but the body size is very similar. So it would feel familiar to someone who's stepping up from a GH.
Now, the S5 was a little more designed for a little more for photographers to a little bit more. I find this one certainly is a little bit more. And in our video, I comment sort of finding it sort of 60% video, 40% stills. When the designers were sort of setting this into place, do they look at it as a hybrid camera to start right off the bat, or do they kind of shift one side or the other, whether video or stills, or they just kind of look at the whole package as a whole, what the most they can deliver to the public?
Yeah, I mean, we've been moving more and more into video-oriented cameras over the last several years, because the market has gone that way. But we didn't want to ignore those photographers as well.
That's good,
So,
'cause I'm one of those.
yeah, and me too. I'm the same way, right? So, I'm super excited about this camera, because, I think it has features that appeal to the photographer in us as well. Something like the new burst rate, 30 frames a second using electronic shutter, which, the S5 was great, but it was very slow in the burst rate. So, we've added things like the new live view composite mode, the high res mode. So there's lots of features to make the photo enthusiasts happy as well. And the reason we released two cameras instead of just one is we wanted to make sure the photo people weren't being penalized by paying for video features that they didn't need. So that's why we have the S5 II and the S5 IIX. And the S5 IIX is at a premium, because the people who want those real pro video features are going to be paying slightly more for them.
Yeah, well, maybe this is a good time for us to give a little bit of a comparison between the two models that were announced. Of course, you're seeing a lot more out there on the S5 II, because you had samples out there. There was a launch event. So yeah, let's see. Could you share your screen and show us maybe the side by side?
Sure. So I just wanted to share this little comparison for people, so they can see what exactly are the upgrades between the S5 II and the S5 IIX. So at the core, they both have all the common features. So you're not losing anything with the S5 IIX by, upgrading to that model, but you're gaining several things. So the first thing is raw capability. So the S5 Mark II, you'll be able to unlock raw output, but you have to buy our software activation package if you want it. So the reason we did that is, again, we don't want to penalize those people who don't need raw, and charge them a higher price for that. So, we tried to keep the base model as low as possible in price, and then the people who want those video features will pay a slight upgrade. So the S5 IIX will have raw output included. You don't have to buy anything else, as well as it will have things like USB to SSD recording. It will do our all intro recording at up to 800 megabits per second. It will do internal ProRes, and then it will have a number of wired and wireless IP streaming features as well, similar to what we have on our cinema box cams and our GH5 Mark II. So there's actually a lot of extra features you're getting for only a $300 difference. So, the video people, they're going to be happy. Photo people, we hope, will be happy too, because they're not spending money on things that they don't need. And we felt that this was a good compromise.
Great, thank you. Yeah, you can stop sharing your screen if you want.
We didn't talk about the last point there.
The stealthiness. Yes, that's true. It's going to be the all black design. No
I always
logos.
liked the red accents on the camera. I thought it was fantastic. So you're taking that away from me now. Now it's an all black stealth design.
Yes, so you won't see the white Lumix logo. It will still have a red record dot, but it will be a darker red than what we normally have. And yeah, it's just, they're calling it the stealth mode or the Batman camera, or different names for it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Now, with the previous autofocus system, the DFD autofocus, are they going to still incorporate the same algorithms into the phase detection system? And can you talk a little bit about how the old DFD system is still incorporated in phase detection?
Sure. So this is actually a hybrid phase detect system, which means that we kept the best parts of contrast, that the parts that people didn't complain about, and we incorporated the best parts of phase detect and merged the two, and then added a brand new human detect algorithm as well that will help the phase detect in challenging situations, such as when you have a backlit subject or when there's multiple people in the scene. It will just, that new human body algorithm will just help the phase be even more accurate as possible.
Now, are there certain situations where the contrast detect is more accurate than phase?
The reason our engineers love contrast so much is it was actually quite quick. Now, as well as I do, that there was a lot of detractors saying it wasn't accurate, but it was very speedy. So, when you combine the accuracy of phase with the speed of contrast, I think you get the best of both worlds there.
We have a question in the chat, so I'm just going to turn over to this really quick, and then we can get back to some of our questions. But this one's from Kevin, and it was regarding internal ProRes for the S5 IIX. To what kind of memory card does it require to record ProRes?
Sure. So right now, the camera has two UHS-2 card slots. So they're both fast slots compared to the S5, which had one UHS-1 and one UHS-2. To record the higher frame rates and those really data-rich codecs, we recommend people do USB to SSD recording. Because especially some of the internal ProRes that we have on the GH6 is almost, 1900 megabits per second. So that's why we had CF Express on the GH6 to handle that. And now with the S5 Mark II, you'll be able to do, output to SSD recording.
Fantastic, thanks. There's also a question here from Dennis asking about a Nikon-related question. We were talking about Panasonic tonight, but thanks for watching, Dennis, and thanks for the shout out from Thunder Bay. And the answer to your question is you're going to wait either way, probably. So
we don't know anything.
Sorry, Dennis.
I
can't help you with your question.
Coming for sure, but tonight we're doing our Tech Talk on Panasonic. So let's see what else we got going on here.
Oh, this is a good one because I actually like this.
Yeah.
So what happened to the 6K photo modes? Neither the S5 or the S5 II or GH6 have this mode. Can you explain?
So we kind of...
I want to know because I think it's an underutilized feature, and maybe that's the answer there. But I found myself when I wanted to use it, it was a very cool little feature to have.
Yeah, maybe explain, Trisha, first, like what he's talking about, the 6K photo mode, and then explain.
Yeah, so previously many years ago, we introduced 4K photo mode where you are actually shooting video at 30 frames a second, and you could pull stills out of it right in camera. So yeah, it was very handy. You could get an 8 megapixel JPEG out of that footage. Then we introduced 6K photo, which the same thing, was 30 frames a second, and you could get an 18 megapixel JPEG out of that footage. So we all thought it was great. It was something that was, maybe ahead of its time, or, it wasn't as publicized as often as I guess it could be. But now with the new burst rate, we actually do photos at 30 frames a second with the electronic shutter, and that is raw plus JPEG or JPEG only. So you have the choice of what form factor you want that photo in, and it should do up to about 200 photos in RAW before it starts to slow down. Now, again, that's going to totally depend on the speed of your SD card. So just keep that in mind. If you want top speed, then, buy a more expensive card that can read and write at much faster data rates.
Now, part of the 6K photo mode, one of the modes they had was the pre-burst, or the pre-capture mode there. Is there a
Yes.
pre-capture with the electronic 30 frames per second?
No, there isn't right now, though. That is something that would be very handy, because I loved it too. I used it quite often. It was great.
And then Jordan Drake said, and the focus stacking, the focus stacking.
I know. But we do have the live view composite mode, which, again, some people may not know about that. And that's great for if you're shooting something like star trails or fireworks or any kind of, say, light trails from traffic. You can actually stack all those photos right in camera and see it composite in real time on your LCD screen or through the viewfinder as you're shooting, which is a great feature. And then you can decide when your photo is enough and you're going to stop it.
Well, all you light painters are going to love that feature if you had a chance to try it out yet.
Yeah.
Another question here in the chat from Aaron, and I can relate to this. Any autofocus tips for tracking my toddler playing? That's where I feel my S5 struggles the most. Can't wait for the S5 II. So I have to say that it does a much better job tracking people in general, especially little people when they're like moving around like crazy. So we were shooting photographs of like the kids skiing, and then as far as toddlers go, we were playing around in the snow and stuff over New Year's, and I definitely felt that it did a much faster and more accurate job of tracking, and then also just nailing focus and getting more keepers. What did you think, Dave?
Well, I photographed a whole bunch of hockey when I was shooting with this, and it's interesting. I was shooting with the 70-200 f4, and it was a really nicely well lit arena, and I found it took a second for it to acquire focus, and once it did, it was very sticky with it. I did find it was picking up lots of different subjects. So I was curious about how it goes about deciding what subject within that frame. Typically, it's the closest subject that they focus on, but in this case, I found it flipped a little bit here and there. So I was trying to figure that one out a little bit more, but hockey's a very difficult sport to shoot with a ton of people skating in front of the camera all the time. So I was impressed with it. It was definitely a big improvement from previous Panasonic experience with shooting that.
And some of the autofocus modes that you can choose are actually hybrid modes. For instance, the zone focusing, and you can select how big that zone is and move it around the screen. It combines with the human detect, and the two work in conjunction. So within that zone, it's actually looking for eyes, faces, heads, bodies, that kind of thing. So you're actually getting two different modes working together to give you even better accurate focus.
Excellent. A follow-up question from Dennis, and maybe someone in the chat might be able to help answer this too. So in Thunder Bay, we're limited to camera equipment. Is there anywhere here to see a Panasonic camera, maybe get their hands on one? If there's any dealers in Thunder Bay that anyone in the chat might be able to answer, let us know.
Dennis, are you suggesting that we do a TCSTV road trip sponsored by Panasonic?
That's an idea. Or Dennis, you should come to Calgary, come to Alberta. And of course, we'd love to put one in your hands too. But maybe someone in the chat, winky wink, could help out with that question.
I think you might be closer to Manitoba than you are to any camera dealers in Ontario, unfortunately.
And then another question here. Oh, it disappeared. Maybe it'll come back later. Okay, well, let's get back to some of these here.
Oh, this is the big one. I think this one.
Okay, you asked this one, Dave.
So the S5 II, on the video side of things, gains the ability to bake a LUT into the footage. In which situations do you think this would be most useful? This is a big thing.
You just read my mind because I was actually just going to bring this up. So, Dave, you're psychic. This is a great, great feature. So in the past, we always had this feature called LUT View Assist. And what it was you could load up to 4 LUTs on your memory card and you could preview them on the camera while you were shooting vlog, which was great because you could quickly see, you know, a kind of a hint of what your final product was going to look like once you did your color grading. But one of those key considerations that our product planning team was thinking about was, you know, there's a lot of people out there who maybe they're pressed for time. They want to cut down their work, their post-processing and their workflow, or maybe they're not an expert at color grading. How can we make their job easier? And this is what we did is we came up with this feature called real-time LUT. And it works for both photo and video. And you can now save your presets or your filters or your LUT, however you want to call it, as a .cube file on your SD card, and you can now bake it right into your footage. So as you're shooting, it's actually doing all those all your color grading, all your post-processing for you right in the camera. So you don't have to spend all that time on your computer after the fact. And say you're shooting for a client, you know, they get to see what the final product is going to look like right as you're shooting. And you can quickly upload something to share to social media right after you're done. You don't no longer have to go back to your laptop and, you know, do all that work after the fact.
Definitely. I'm going to pull Drew on for this because he was pretty happy about this this feature because a lot of the time he's hand grading our footage. And so this saved him quite a bit of time when we were looking at some of the samples. So Drew, tell us what you thought.
I mean, it was, oh man, that's so weird to hear.
Like,
yeah. Okay, we're just going to director mode off. It was just really cool to have the library. We uploaded a few Panasonic specific, but then Jordan and I both took some time to throw in a couple of fun ones. And it was just really awesome to be able to see pretty much exactly what we got directly in Suite. And it did save a lot of time editing. That was one of our longer episodes, and there was like a lot of footage that I would normally have to grade, a lot of vlog, especially for the all the slope side stuff. So yeah, it was really handy to have that. So
awesome, yeah.
And you can load up to 10 different looks all at once in the camera. So you can pick if one of them is not working for you, you can quickly switch to another one right in the camera.
Yeah, and actually, I think this addresses something. So I think I remember what the one question is that disappeared, and they were kind of asking about how it would compare to a Fujifilm camera. And the LUT thing did kind of remind me of that a lot of people like the idea of having like the film simulations that they can have in their profiles. And so you now have like a huge plethora of LUTs that you can choose from. And if you have 10 into the camera, I mean, depending on your situation, you can like fine tune it to exactly the look that you want. Or if you have kind of like some consistent branding you always want to follow, then you can just have that right out of camera, which is super handy.
Yeah. And not just for video, it works for photo as well. So if you have all your actions and presets set up in Lightroom, you can now export them to this .cube file on your SD card, save it in the camera, and you can save yourself a ton of time, you know, by baking everything into your photo beforehand.
Yes.
And some guy in the chat, Gary Chung.
Gary, oh, who's that? Did Gary ask a question? He's from our TCSTV live stream team. Come on, hi Gary. Wave to the camera.
What is your question, Gary?
He's in the chat. Okay, I'll ask this question for him because he's being shy. What is the largest capacity SSD that can be used on the camera? You're talking about the X, right? Yeah.
Right now it's 2 terabytes.
2 terabytes.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And we do have a list of compatible SSDs for the GH6 on our Panasonic Lumix website. You know, there's a lot of really popular ones like the Samsung T5 and all that. And we're checking more and adding more to the list all the time. So it will be very similar for the S5 IIX. And hopefully by the time it comes out in May, if everyone was asking, that's when it's coming, May. we should have more options and models of SSD by then.
Okay, we had someone that joined late, so I'm going to hop to their question and then we'll circle back to some of the others, but definitely keep them coming. I might not always go in order. But this one's from Wong, who said they joined late. Were there any new lenses released as well with this launch?
Yes, we actually did announce a new wide angle 14 to 28 millimeter lens. This is meant because we get a lot of complaints about people saying our lenses are too expensive. So this is more of a very value priced lens for someone, again, who is maybe conscious of their budget and doesn't, have thousands of dollars to spend. So it is an f4 to 5.6, and it does have a half macro capability as well. So for those photo people who want to take macro photos, it's a great lens for that. And it should be available the end of February for around $10.99 Canadian.
That's great. Okay, and then we'll circle back to some of these other questions here. So I have a lot of EF lenses, but I'm interested in giving the S5 II a try. Has there been any work with Sigma to improve the performance of the MC21 adapter? I saw one test that looked very promising.
There actually was. That was one of our main priorities for this camera, is to make sure that the autofocus was optimized for EF lens users. So I think you will see a big difference between the S5 and the S5 Mark II with the new autofocus if you're an EF customer.
And for those that are kind of new to the Panasonic lineup, there's actually an alliance. And so they actually talk to each other and like share technology and try to work together to create better products and different options. So unlike a lot of other brands where they like keep everything pretty close to their chest, Panasonic is able to work alongside Sigma.
Cool. And we do have a good question from Aaron Humphreys here. It says, are you finding some L-mount lenses focus faster than others with the new camera? I have a nice collection of Lumix and Sigma lenses and wondering if you've noticed a difference in speed of lenses.
Yeah, one thing that we got feedback on was that our gorgeous, massive 50 mil f1.4 was a little bit slow. And the reason for that is it has a lot of glass in there. It's a huge lens element in that 50 mil. So it is not as speedy as, say, the 50 mil 1.8. So just keep that in mind. But that was meant as a studio lens. It's not a action lens. So I think, people
Not
who
a
are
hockey
using
lens, Dave.
No, I didn't take it to hockey.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then another question here. Actually, we'll go to the lens since we're talking about lenses. This is from Dennis. How many lenses are available and how do they compare to other brands for sharpness? And cheers from the Bay. Also, oh yes, of course. You're the Thunder Bay guy.
Oh, Thunder Bay.
So we have, I think, I didn't count exactly, but we have about 18 lenses or so in Lumix. Sigma has a same amount, and Leica has, I'm not sure how many, but there's probably over 50 lenses you can choose from that are L mount. And then with the Sigma adapter, there's a whole range of EF mount lenses you can use as well. And it's everything from, super wide aperture, very, very sharp lenses up to, something that's more, maybe not as fast, but someone who's on a budget will, like that type of lens. So you have a wide variety to choose from.
Yeah, and I can definitely attest to a lot of the Panasonic lenses, especially the L series ones are fantastic. They have a lot of really great sharp lenses. They have some excellent ones that are tuned towards being cinema type lenses, and they're absolutely phenomenal. Drew, you were kind of playing around with one of the GH series lenses, but same thing, same kind of lens technology that goes into them.
Well, when I went to the hockey shoot, I brought not just the 70 to 200, but I also brought the 35, which I really love, the 35 1.8, and also the 85 millimeter as well. And really small, lightweight lenses, but produce excellent results. I was really impressed with the sharpness.
And a lot of our lenses, while they're not true cine lenses, they're all corrected for focus breathing. So you'll find minimal focus breathing when you're shooting video and
Now, is that done in the lens itself,
regard.
or is that done in the programming of the camera?
That is actually in the lens itself.
That's good.
Okay. Oh, here's a question from Sir Ken. Does the S5 II support external ProRes RAW, B-RAW recording, or is that a feature that is exclusive to the S5 IIX? And we did touch on that, I think,
Briefly. So you will be able to do external RAW on the S5 II if you purchase the software upgrade kit. So right now that is around $130 Canadian, and you will be able to get that. But if you get the S5 IIX, you know, for an extra $300, that's already included. So I think it's a very, you know, economical way to go. Bless you, whoever sneezed.
All right. Best in Cam Loops has a question. He says, does the phase detect autofocus work in 6K 30p, 30 frames, and 6K 60 on the S5 Mark IIX?
We don't have 6K 60, but yes, it works in 6K 30.
Excellent.
Perfect. Oh, actually, speaking of, well, we didn't talk about all the modes available, but can you talk a little bit about the things that's going on in the forum with crop when it comes to 4K 60?
Yeah, so, you know, we try our best to listen to our customers and give them what they want. And, you know, the biggest complaint they had for years was face detect. So we made them happy with face detect. Now they've moved on to the next thing, which is many people are unhappy that there's a crop in 4K 60. And I just want to say that there's no other camera on the market in this same price point that has uncropped 4K 60. So if you want full sensor width 4K 60, you're going to have to spend many $1,000s more. So just, you know, people keep that in mind. There's a limit to what we can do with that price point that we're trying to hit.
$2,600 body.
Exactly, exactly. And when you look at the competition to this camera, they all have cropped 4K 60. We're not the only ones. So we were meeting what the competition was doing, you know, at that same price point.
Hey, well, that's a good sign, because if that's what most people are whining about,
I know.
what are you gonna
Yeah,
do?
I kind of got the feeling that people were really having to work hard to find things that they didn't like about this camera. And I'm not just saying that because I work for Panasonic. You know, I'm super excited about this camera, and I was so happy to see the reviews and that other people were excited about it too. So, you know, that just makes us feel good and feel that, you know, we're validated, we did something good. So, yeah, so I felt that, you know, the comments of people, oh, I don't like this, I don't like this, they were very minor, you know, so that was good news.
Excellent. Okay, someone here, this is from Cliff Fix. I pre-ordered the S5 II to replace my S1H. When can I buy the license for RAW over HDMI? I need it ASAP.
Oh, that's available already. So we actually brought it out back with our S1 camera. So it is available already. The model number is the DMW SFU II. So just look for that. You should be able to find it online.
I think we have the...
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll pop the link in the chat in a
Yeah.
moment here. If Gary could get on that, that would be great. Ember Sky Media says, I'm still on the fence for the full frame mount. This is a good question. Mainly using MFT at the moment. I'm wondering where you see the S2X fitting in the competitors' cameras. Like, where is it going to compete?
So when we were looking at the competition, the benchmark for these cameras was the Sony A7 IV, the Canon, the R6 II, the Nikon Z6 II. So that was really the benchmark that we were looking for. But we like to include extra features all the time. You know, we like to over-engineer our cameras, as we say it. So we feel that that was the benchmark, but we have so much more to offer in our camera than a competitor camera at the same price.
And then as a follow-up, they said, currently my lenses are F mount, so that's exactly. What would be the best adapter to get L mount? Even if it was...
I don't know if there's a F to L right now that I can think of.
No, everyone's shaking their heads. Not with autofocus, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get back into some of our questions. I want to make sure we get to some of them. Okay, so we touched on it briefly about in-body image stabilization. And I think, again, we have to say that we thought it was very impressive. So can you talk about what has actually changed with the mechanism to allow for the improvements, especially when you're in the boost mode?
Yeah, so we actually have 4 different kinds of image stabilization working all together in this camera. So we've always had our dual image stabilization, which is our in-body plus our optical combined together. We also have electronic image stabilization in video, though there is a slight crop in that. So just keep that in mind if you're using it. Then our Boost IS, which we introduced a few years ago. But this new active image stabilization is, if people, maybe are familiar with, active mode on, an iPhone or something like that, it's meant to stabilize the camera as you're walking and shooting. And again, this goes back to, maybe someone doesn't have the budget to have a gimbal, or they don't like gimbal shooting. This is just going to give you the best quality footage possible as you're hand holding that camera. And I think, I've seen a lot of test footage of this, and it looks really great.
GH6 and the whole Micro Four Thirds lineup is what we shoot most of our YouTube channel on. Can you sort of tell what would be the advantages to go to the S5 II, or what do the advantages of the GH6 lineup have?
So the GH6, you're going to have so many more options, especially for high frame rate, and it's 4K 120, that faster sensor readout, less rolling shutter, just because it's a smaller sensor. But so many people these days want the full frame look. That's what they're gravitating towards. That's really what they want. So if someone is deciding between the two, I think it's a tough choice. You have to figure out what your needs are and what is most important to you, and then choose between the two of them. Do you need that phase detect? Do you want the 4K 120? And kind of choose there.
Yeah, it's like the playing field's kind of being leveled out a lot more, because before it used to be having the Micro Four Thirds sensor cameras, you would be able to have a lot of that like unlimited abilities to be able to record longer and do all that. But now we're seeing in these full frame cameras that you're gaining these awesome abilities, and of course still maintaining things like great weather sealing. We did put that to the test. It did quite well. And we're happy to see that again in Panasonic fashion. They work well in Canada when it's very cold. They
and also when it's very hot.
Or when it's very hot. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And so the S5 had record limits on it. So you were limited to 30-minute recording. In 10-bit, you could shoot unlimited in 8-bit. So again, we wanted to remove that obstacle for content creators, because we did a lot of interviews with influencers and creators, before this camera launched, and they all said they don't like that record limit. So, we wanted to remove it. So this camera actually has a little fan in the pentaprism section,
so
that,
cool.
The active cooling fan. So it allows you to do unlimited recording up to 40 degrees Celsius in 6K and 4K without any of those time limits, which I think is great.
So 40 degrees Celsius is great, but we never see it here. How about 40 below Celsius?
Once you're at that temperature, it's the same, isn't it? Fahrenheit and Celsius. Cool.
I think
cool.
so. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's funny is that with a lot of the content that's come, at least from what I've seen, there hasn't been as much concern about like, is the fan going to be noisy? Is it going to ruin your footage? But when the S1H came out, that's what everyone was very concerned about. But in this case, you don't even know it's there. Like, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And there's so many different modes. Like, you can choose, if you don't want fan at all, then maybe you are slightly limited in your footage, but if you don't mind the fan being on, then it's totally unlimited. And you can set like auto, high speed, low speed. There's all different options for the fan.
And also
yeah.
human face and eye.
So they kind of are what they sound like, but Face and Eye only looks for eyes and faces. That's it. So if your head is turned, it's not going to lock on. So the better one to actually use is the human body, because that algorithm is geared in 4 different tiers. So it looks for an eye first. If it does not see an eye, it looks for a face. If it doesn't see a face, then it's looking for a head. And then finally, it's looking for a body if it doesn't see a head. So in a millisecond, it's going through this algorithm and looking for those 4 things. And it will be much more accurate than just simply face and eye, unless you have a subject that's always turned toward the screen. So I think the human body one is much more accurate.
Okay. I want to get to a question here from Cliff about the differences again between the X and the S5 II. So will the X model be given more exclusive features in the future that the non-X model won't have? And then just to be 100% clear, the S5 II, will it have HDMI RAW ability on shipping day with firmware 1.0?
Yes, if you buy the software upgrade. So for the S5 II, you have to buy the software. For the X, no software needed. It's included. Open the box, you'll get raw output ready to go. So at this point in time, we haven't been told of any future firmware updates. So it's possible, in the next year, maybe, that the X will get additional features. But for now, all we know is that list, that it will have the raw output. It will have the USB to SSD capability. It will have the all intra, the internal ProRes, and the wired and wireless IP streaming. So those are the confirmed upgrades that we have right now that we know about.
That's very cool. Are we going to see Phase Detect basically make its way through every Panasonic camera from here on in?
Well, seeing that everyone is so excited about it, I can say that we'll probably see it on more cameras.
Yeah. Have you heard if there's anything specific for the G series, for the Mic Four Thirds?
I'm sure someone's thinking about it somewhere in our product.
Something is brewing, perhaps. All right, I'll see if we have anything else.
The other thing is, is there any accessories for the S5 II, like a
grip,
for instance?
Yeah, someone was asking about the grip.
Yeah, so there is a battery grip that's available, and also the XLR adapter if you want to do 4-channel audio. So similar to what we had with GH6, that's available. We also have the battery eliminator that you can get if you want to shoot for long periods of time. But the one thing I want to bring up is, you don't actually have to buy 10 batteries. You can power this through a USB power bank and be charging the battery and powering the camera at the same time. So for someone who wants that long shooting time, that is an option without having to carry, 8, 10 batteries with you.
Now, is that with any USB-C cable, or does it have to be a PD USB?
It has to be a PD, and it has to deliver 9 volts and 3 amps at the very minimum of power to be able to charge the battery and power the camera at the same time.
Drew has something.
Oh, Drew's got a question.
Just a small one. Was there a specific reason that Panasonic decided not to include a CF Express Type B slot in the S5 II or the X? Especially with the X, it seems like for internal recording that would have been pretty handy.
Yeah, I don't know the reasoning behind it. I think it was, space. It was trying to keep things reasonably priced for our end users, because SD is cheaper than CF Express. And then those people who did need to record in, internal ProRes or the All Intra had the option of doing to an SSD. So, if they needed those bit rates, then they, buy an SSD, which in the long run is cheaper than buying a ton of SD cards anyway.
We got a good question here from El Delega. He says, please ask if it would be possible to add 3260p mode to the S35 anamorphic options. I know the S5 II now has the 4348p option from the S1H, but he has to have 60p.
Okay. Well, we'll have to write that one down on our wish list.
Hey, that's what I say to my kids all the time. We're just gonna write that one down.
Yeah.
In the future, maybe Santa will bring it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, for L mount lenses, are they already optimized for phase detect autofocus? Like, was this happening earlier than we even knew about? I'm sure it was. Or do they require firmware updates? What is the support like for Leica and Sigma lenses?
So there is firmware updates for the lenses to optimize the PDAF. So that should be posted to the global Lumix site very soon if it's not already. And sorry, what was the second part of your question, Ev?
If they're optimized for phase detect or if they require firmware updates.
Okay, yeah, so just the firmware update.
Yeah. Oh, and what the support is like for Leica and Sigma lenses.
Yeah, I can't speak to the Leica and Sigma. All I can say that the product manager for Sigma in Canada reached out to me the other day and he's like, hey, I heard you have this great new camera. Can we test it? So I think they're going to be testing their lenses with this camera to make sure everything is optimized. And maybe you'll be seeing some firmware updates for Sigma lenses soon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Panasonic is always really ambitious with their firmware updates. Are there any features that you want to see yourself in firmware updates? And how can we put our wish list together for what we'd like to see?
Well, I know Jordan's wish list is that puppet autofocus that he was
autofocus. Yeah, I don't know if Jordan's in the chat anymore, but I'll tell him that you promised puppet autofocus.
Autofocus, yeah.
Just on Jordan, not Chris, right? Or no?
Just on the Jordan puppet. Ooh, that could get complicated.
My wish list, that's a good question. I actually haven't thought about it. I'm excited about everything that's in here. I can't wait to try out some of the real-time LUT features in photo on this camera. I don't even have one either because I lent out all my samples to people across Canada. So I haven't been able to play with it at all. I'm itching to get my hands on it too.
Yes. What other, what's your favorite S lineup lens? Or what are you most excited about to pair with it?
To be honest, I think my ideal kit with this would be the 20 to 60 and an 85 mil. So I could do some portraits as well. I think those two would be my go-to. But everyone's different, we have people that swear by the 16 to 35 and the, 24-70 and all that. So personally, I like the lighter lenses, just to be more mobile. So that's why I think those two for me would be a great.
That's what we have here. This is the S5 with the 20 to 60 on there, and you can see it is a nice sort of package to be walking around with, and it gives you a lot of flexibility with that.
Yeah.
I guess what would be your top sort of 3 takeaways as upgrades from the S5 to the S5 II?
Besides the autofocus,
phase detect is massive, right? We get that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's
top
the
3 other features.
The 3 other features. I think the real-time LUT is very exciting. There's so many different options and opportunities for that feature that I think haven't even begun to be explored yet. So that's something that customers will be able to just go crazy and figure out what works for them. The 30 frames a second burst mode as a photographer, that's exciting for me. I'm happy about that. And I think the unlimited 6K 10-bit recording up to 40 degrees Celsius, is going to be a big bonus for people that especially are shooting long events like our weddings or theater, plays, concert, whatever, that really need to rely on their camera equipment to get the job done.
Yeah, and I think that's one area where Panasonic has always been really strong, is having just really good reliability. And again, especially I would say on on the video side of things, there's been a lot of features that have kind of been unlocked on the Panasonic side a lot earlier than some of the other competitors. And it's great to see that being maintained. And even though this is, a $2,600 body, and it's the entry point to the full frame lineup for Panasonic, you're still getting a lot of professional tools. And so you can really grow with the camera. There's great video assist tools that will help you out. In terms of like waveforms, vector scopes. And so as you advance your knowledge and skills, you're able to utilize more of that as you go.
Yeah, and this is a camera that you can certainly grow with. If you're just starting out in videos, the first time you ever touched a video camera or want to do any kind of video, this is going to really, you can go from full program and just sort of let it rock and roll. But you can also go as far as you want to go with this camera.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, is we wanted to make a tool that would work for people no matter what their skill level was. They would find very useful features in it.
All right, we got a big one. This is the big one. This is the best question so far.
Yes. The date?
No, this one.
Oh.
Brian Andrews.
Oh, yes, Brian Andrews.
He says, thanks for doing this. No problem, Brian. We did it just for you. He's excited for the S5 II. His only wish list and my only wish list, and I believe Evelyn will concur with me on this one, is the whole tally lamp thing going on.
No,
Yes.
We have to rely on Drew to tell us that he's rolling.
Yes, Trish, explain yourself.
I know. Yeah. To be honest, I didn't even think about that until I saw your video, and I was like, oh yeah, that tally lamp. Okay. I guess the only workaround, I was going to say you can flip your screen around and it shows a red box when you're recording, but then you lose your ability to see. I guess if you're using an external monitor, it would work because you could be watching on the monitor and your talent could be watching the LCD screen that's flipped around.
Our external monitor just keeps waving his finger at us.
Yeah, but lack of tally lamp, I know. I'll have to add that again to the list.
Excellent. I think there's one other question here. Speaking of firmware updates, can we expect any of the S5 II software advancements also on the S5? I mean, you can't firmware update adding face detection autofocus.
Because that's sensor-based.
No. But yeah, I'm not sure about that. The things like the 6K unlimited, the 30 frames a second burst, all that has to do with the fact that there's a brand new engine in this camera that Panasonic and Leica co-developed together. And this faster engine is allowing for things like the burst rate and the unlimited 6K shooting and the all intra at 800 megabits. So it would be impossible to go back and add that to the S5. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be firmware coming for S5 as well. But those key features, people will have to remember that it's not possible, to put that in the S5 camera.
Fantastic. Well, there's been a lot of great features that we've talked about, and I just want to say thank you so much, Trisha, for always being our technical guru. We always love chatting with you, whether it's live or whenever we have a question. So
Yes,
thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, and I hope to get to Calgary very soon. I know the people around your store haven't seen my face for many years, so hopefully I will get out to Calgary soon and we can have an in-store demo day so that the customers can come out and pick up the camera and play with it and ask questions and just get to really get your hands on it and get a feel for it.
That's good. You are always welcome to join us here.
Yeah, and I'm going to squeeze one more question in because Daniel just asked here. Will the S5 IIX only have wireless live streaming capabilities, or will the S5 II be able to do this too? That's a good question. Glad we snuck that one in.
So the S5 IIX will have wired and wireless live streaming as well as tethering to a smartphone. So you'll be able to do wireless to your smartphone or a router. You'll be able to tether to your smartphone, or you can do wired through your LAN cable. USB to laptop. So you'll have three options actually for streaming.
But that's just on the X.
Yeah.
Just on the X, not on the 2.
But both the cameras you can plug directly into your computer and use as a webcam, correct?
You can use it as a webcam, definitely. Yes. Yeah. But the live streaming is through our app, our Lumix app that we have that it's very easy to get online and do live streaming. It's just a couple quick steps. So it's not intimidating or anything like that.
Fantastic. Okay.
That's super cool.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for watching and for all of your great questions. We thought that you enjoyed this experience. And if you want to catch more of these live streams or any of our other content, make sure that you hit the subscribe button as well as the notification so you can be notified whenever we go live. And of course, if you have any suggestions on any other topics that we can cover, please be sure to comment or you can send us an email. Mine is evelyn@thecamerastore.com. And we hope to catch you all again very soon.
Thanks for joining, guys.